G'day, thanks for the question. So this is in reference to moving property into a family trust. If you missed that video, feel free to click this comment and go and check it out. What if it's part of a will? So let's talk a couple of parts to this because it really depends on the structure initially. So I'm going to firstly assume that you mean that there is property that somebody owns and in turn they pass away and they are leaving you a particular property. Now, in estate planning, if a property is transferred, there is no stamp duty required, and depending on the circumstance, there is typically no capital gains tax at that particular juncture in time. There are ultimately going to be future considerations, and there is also going to be a cost-based consideration. I can film a separate video about that, but at the time of transfer, there are typically no costs associated with that particular transfer happening. Now, if those properties were held in a family trust prior to that individual passing away, it does not necessarily mean that those assets are going to be dealt with by that trust. We need to refer to the trust deed, and we need to consider what the rules and regulations are and also what role that person had in regards to that trust. So, typically speaking, in a family trust, there is usually a trustee, and that trustee in many cases is a company, and that person may be a director of that company, and they are controlling the trust. There will normally be a process involved for appointing a new trustee, and then also that trustee can have discretion depending on the trust deed of who are the new beneficiaries. So it does get a little bit more complicated, and succession isn't as easy as just reading the will and seeing what that says. So the important part of all of this is that it depends on a number of factors. One, it depends on the will itself. How is it written? How is it worded? Two, it depends on the asset itself. Is it a principal place of residence? Is it an investment property? And that also determines the future tax considerations. Thirdly, is there existing trusts and companies in place? And what are the constitutions or the trust deeds of those entities? That will largely determine what happens. It can be quite complicated, so it is very important that you do get your own personal advice, ideally from a financial advisor, an accountant, and potentially even a lawyer. So hope this helps to give you a little bit of direction, but make sure you get some advice. Thanks.